finished this book, I was like, okay, it's fine. I'm really struggling to care truly about the story. There is this sense that something is going to go badly. Hey everyone! I am so excited to start filming for this. This is the beginning of my series where I'm going to attempt, hopefully, to read the Women's Prize Longlist. But I wasn't expecting to pick this book up, and I haven't finished yet. I wanted to give like updates throughout. So okay, my plan for how I'm going to structure these vlogs is I'm going to update you every 100 pages. I think that will help me be able to go a bit more deeper into my review of each book. We'll see if I continue. You tell me, maybe do you just want me to come in at the end and be like, I finished this book, this is what I think? Let me know. Anyway, I didn't know where to start with the long list, and I'm honestly in the hands of my local library. Like, they're the ones that tell me truly which books I'm going to read, because I'm sourcing all these books from the library. So the two books that have come to me first are the ones that I'm going to read. And the way I chose this book, because I was going to start the other one, but I made like a TikTok / YouTube short a few days ago, or was it last week? I don't know, time, what the fuck is it? And a mutual friend of mine who I know on the book online world, and I'm pretty sure I also maybe have sold her a book. Hi Kobe, if you're watching this. Kobe said, I read Children of Paradise and I was really like surprised by how much I enjoyed it. And I was like, okay, you got me. I'm going to read Children of Paradise first. So that's what I'm doing. Children of Paradise by Camilla Grudova. I didn't know that this was her first novel. She has published a collection of short stories prior to this called The Doll's Alphabet. I think, yeah, The Doll's Alphabet. And I think that was published by Fitzcarraldo. I am thoroughly enjoying this. I'm enjoying this. Okay, let's talk about this. Okay, I'm 100 pages in. So when you begin this book, you are dropped in the middle of Holly's world. She is going to Paradise, which is a cinema. It's one of the oldest cinemas in the area, and she's going to be interviewed for a job there. The interview itself is quite strange because Sally, I think it's Sally, who is the manager, doesn't necessarily ask for her resume. She just asks some questions and then gives Holly the job. And even Holly was like, this is a bit strange, but she just really desperately needed the job. Paradise itself, how do I describe it? This is it feels like a fever dream. Holly feels as though she's not really in the clique that is the other workers of Paradise, which slowly over time she does kind of become part of the group. So I'm just reeling because I read the 100 pages last night so quickly. It's such an easy read. It's really, really fast paced. There's like an energy to it that you just kind of keep on wanting to read. So when you begin this book, you kind of think, okay, are we gonna have like a sad girl moment that is very, you know, reminiscent of like Rooney, like Moshfegh? But no, if you've read like Mona Awad, like Bunny, that's the vibe that I'm getting. There is such a deep underlying uneasiness and unsettling, like I can't describe it to you unless you've like read it truly, because you're as you're reading it, there's like this growing sense of horror. Nothing really truly is horrific in the sense of like the way that maybe Bunny is. There's no rituals turning bunnies into human men, but there is this sense that something is going to go badly, like something is going to happen. And over time you feel as though Holly herself is becoming more and more like gobbled up. Like it feels like a cult. It truly feels like this strange cult situation where Paradise itself is like the charismatic leader of the cult. Like it's so strange and it's so immersive, and I'm so engaged and I'm having the best time reading it. This is right up my alley. I even wrote some notes. So I'm gonna open up my little journal here, because last night I was writing some notes because I really want to make these videos helpful. So first impressions, oh yes, okay. The writing is great. I wrote here that it's like wonderfully descriptive. Especially in the beginning when you're alongside Holly as she's being introduced to Paradise, the descriptions of Paradise, it's like you're there. They're quite visceral and also quite sensory. Camilla Grudova, you know, brings in smells and textures, and it's more than just, oh, there's a shelf over there with stuff on it and there's a cinema. Like it's very descriptive, but not in a way that's super flowery or like it's not like Donna Tartt sort of wonderfully pretentious type of descriptive. It's a descriptive that is straight to the point but still quite beautiful in its simplicity. Like I wanted to give you an example. So page 6, I just loved this image in my head. The cash tills were so old they looked like Victorian churches perched on the countertops. See, immediately you get this image in your head. That's what I'm finding that I absolutely adore about Camilla Grudova's writing. And then I also have page 16. The staff, while working, all in black, looked like ants crawling over an abandoned wedding cake. And then an image immediately comes into your head. But also, let's circle back to the whole ant situation, okay? This is a cult. It's so unsettling. It's so unsettling. I wrote here that it's beginning, like past page 16, it's beginning to have this underlying creepiness, a feeling of being unsettled. There are a few things mentioned by Holly that makes me stop reading for a moment, kind of like a, what the hell is that? What did just happen? Like what happened? Are we supposed to believe, like, is Holly a reliable narrator? Or is she herself just a part of Paradise and in turn unreliable because she's seeing things that are not reality? Listen to this. Page 55. My nights watching films alone in my room were abandoned, and I become another eye in the creature we made. Okay? Okay? Okay. Okay. So I think also the fact that the cinema is called Paradise is ironic. I think it's ironic because Paradise itself is a hellscape. It is a hellscape. The way that the patrons of Paradise treat it is, you know, I just feel like it's very deeply perverted and quite disturbing that this is happening. And I think that also adds to this like ultimately super creepy environment. Then you also have, I don't know if I'm making sense, so you have these moments when the characters, the like other side characters, act in a way that is not normal, in the sense of like something's going on. And so I wrote like, is it possible that Paradise is possessing them in a weird way, or if there is something going on that is deeply malignant like, is something latching onto them. There was this scene, they were at the Cineplex, the local Cineplex, and Holly went to do something. I completely forgot what it was. I literally just read it. I can't believe I forgot it. And then she tried to come back to the same cinema, but she forgot which cinema they were in at the Cineplex. And so she opened a door thinking that's where all of her co-workers were, who were now her friends, essentially. And what she saw of one of the workers, Otto, I had to read it multiple times because he was doing things, like his body was doing things that were very strange. And then she was like, I'm not going in there because I feel as though if I go in there, shit's going to go down. She had a very bad feeling. So she went into the bathroom, and Paulo was there, who was another co-worker, who he also was acting quite weird, but they ended up having sex. But very strange. And then there are other instances where the co-workers' actions are not altogether quite human. Like there's like a disconnect there. And it's very strange. And then you have Holly, who has seen some things in paradise that no one else has seen. And so again, I feel like there's something deeply, deeply wrong that's going on. And I think the next 100 pages is where things are really going to get intense. And even just the casual way, because I do truly feel that Paradise is changing Holly in a very, like, it's a very subtle way, but it's powerful, because there was this scene where they were talking about how trustworthy, like how, not trustworthy, but the fact that people go to a cinema and are essentially like placed in a room and they're trusting the workers of said cinema to treat them well, like, you know, which I understand because you could very easily like lock people in this room, and that's what they were saying. Like, oh, the characters were like, oh, like we could, you know, block all the exits and lock all the doors and like burn them. And then one of the characters, Paulo, who is creepy, he said that he sometimes has like blocked the fire exits, because he's like, well, if a fire happens, it's not my problem. And just the very blasé way, right? And Holly's like, yeah, like we could do whatever we wanted with them. And I'm like, holy shit. Something is deeply wrong with this place. And it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. I'm having an incredible time reading this. I'm hoping to finish this today after I do what I need to do. Honestly, all I want to do right now is read this because I'm just so captured by this story. But I can't say right now, because I haven't read any of the other books, how this would compare to the other books. And also, how am I supposed to compare a 200-page book? Some people call this a novella on Goodreads. How can I compare this 200-page book to like Demon Copperhead, which is, I think, over 500 pages? Like, how is that? How do you do that? How? Oh, it's going to be a really interesting series. I'm very excited, but I will update you when I finish this novel. I'm having a great time. Right now, if I wanted to give you my honest opinion, this is a 4-star. It's sitting on a 4-star right now, which is still fantastic. And I would definitely be picking up this author in the future. And I really want to pick up her short story collection. I don't know if it will be necessarily my favorite, but who knows? Maybe this will be like the #1 for me. But oh my god, this is just so awesome. I will say, after I finish Children of Paradise, I will be starting the next book for this challenge, which is Black Butterflies. And I have to admit, this is one of the books that I'm really, really excited for. I think you might have seen my excitement in my TikTok and YouTube short video, because I've never heard of this book and I've never read a book within this historical context and setting. So I'm just so looking forward to it. I feel like it's going to be a very intense read. So I'll talk more about this when I actually end up starting it, but I'm gonna go and do some work now. Thank you so much for watching this update. I don't know what I'm saying. Okay, hello. I finished Children of Paradise. It's actually taken me a couple days to do this update because I completely forgot. And as a result, I don't have the book with me because I already returned it to the library. Anyway, what do I say? I feel like my first clip of me talking about this book, I talked quite at length about how I was feeling, and I still really enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 stars in the end. Why did I give it 3.5 stars? I think it fizzled a little bit. I think like the story itself, it was building up to something, and then it kind of just, plateaued? Like it just went eh. Still really engaging in a way, because at that point you just want to finish the story and see what actually happens. But I've heard some criticism about this book that it didn't really go as deep into things as people would have liked. But I would say, which I agree, but I would also say that I feel like this is, although it's not gothic horror, it reminds me a lot of Mariana Enriquez. And I think the beauty of Mariana Enriquez is that a lot of things are not fully explored. There's an ambiguity to it that I feel like leaves room for interpretation by the reader, and maybe that was Grudova's intention. I do think though that there were a few events that happened in like the latter third of the book that was just really incredibly wild and very fun to read. I think the slow deterioration and destruction of paradise itself after various things that happened just felt right for the story. Like it felt like it was the right trajectory for it, considering that paradise itself kind of symbolized so many things. And I still stand by the fact that it's very cultish. Like it was very cultish. I think it's a very solid read. I think that Camilla Grudova is an author that I will watch in the future, but I might say something controversial. I don't think that it was Women's Prize Longlist worthy. I don't know. I feel like there was just something about it that just didn't fully get me there. And you all know that I am here for the strange and the weird, and I love speculative fiction. I love gothic stuff, and as we know from my previous video, I am now someone who very much enjoys horror. So especially gothic horror. So I love when books are strange and slightly ambiguous and vague, but this just didn't get there for me. And it was like the last half to the last third of the book that I really think that it fizzled and didn't quite get to where it needed to go. But other than that, I think it was a really great start to the Women's Prize Longlist. So I'm quite happy about that, actually. I just really would like to know, I need to go on to the website, because I would like to know the justification and reasons for why they chose the books, and I would like to know why they chose Children of Paradise, because I would like to see what they saw in it, to the point that, you know, it was longlist worthy. I will update you 100 pages into my next book, which will most likely be Black Butterflies. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Country Victoria. I'm actually in Gunbower, Victoria, which is Northern Country. So just across, like, if you go right over there past the forest, you'll hit New South Wales. We're actually quite close to the border, which Mum and I didn't really realise, which we should have realised because we're past Echuca. Anyway, it's lovely here. We're supposed to get thunderstorms. Hopefully not, because the weather is just absolutely stunning. Anyway, I wanted to give you some updates about Women's Prize books. So remember how I said that I was going to update you all every 100 pages or so? Yeah, I finished a book before I even updated you. I know, I could hear you screaming at me, but in my defense, I really was just feeling reading. Like, I was here, I started reading Black Butterflies by Priscilla when I came here, and do you hear that? And it was just so wonderful, so I just kind of wanted to keep on reading in this beautiful, beautiful country. It's just, oh, it's just stunning. Anyway, I finished Black Butterflies. I started and finished it earlier this week, and I'm honestly still a bit hesitant to definitively talk about my feelings about this book, because I really don't know how I feel. This was one of my most anticipated books from the long list, purely because I have never read anything that's really about Yugoslavia and like the civil war. Is that, would you call it a civil war that happened? So I was incredibly fascinated, really. I don't know how I feel about it. Let's just talk about maybe what it's about. We have a story set in Sarajevo in 1992, centering, if you hear like crawling noises, as possums, centering on Zora, on her story. So she is a teacher and an artist, and she has a daughter that lives in the United Kingdom, in England, and she has a husband named Franjo, I think, and she also has a mother. So things around Sarajevo have been heating up for a while, and politically it's a bit tense, as well as socially and culturally around this time. When we begin the story, we are at a point where the president has passed a law. Was it the president? Has passed a law about like squatters' rights. So essentially, because so many people are fleeing Sarajevo or don't live in Sarajevo full time for various reasons, some because politically things are heating up and it's a bit awkward and tense, but other times it's just people don't live in the city full time. So he passed a law that mandates, like, if an apartment or a house is empty, like, you are more than welcome to move in. So we kind of start the story there because Zora's mother is living with Zora because every winter she gets incredibly sick. So this lighting is really bad, but is that better? Every winter, because she's growing old, she just wants to be with Zora, and so she can be taken care of. The winter gets to her a lot. So when Zora goes to visit her mother's apartment just to make sure everything is a-okay with her husband, people have already moved in, and they didn't believe Zora when Zora's like, no, my mother is alive, she's just not living here at the moment because she's old and it's winter. But that's kind of how this book is situated. So already we are shown that things are quite tense. Things are happening. It's like a boiling pot. It's about to boil over. And then for some reason, Franjo, so Zora's husband, thinks maybe it's best if they all go to London just to wait out and see what's happening with Sarajevo, with the politics, because again, things are heating up. There's a bit more, military that's patrolling the streets. There've been, like, nationalists have trying to carve out areas for specific ethnicities. So Zora's husband, Valid, really is like, maybe we should all go, like, now. And Zora's like, but I can't of my job, I don't have a leave. And the husband's like, well, I think we need to take your mother out. It's the possums. I think we need to take your mother out of London. And Zora's like, well, then you go and you take her. I don't understand why the mother couldn't have just gone herself. Or, actually no, I understand why. She's old and a bit frail because she was unwell. But nothing was stopping Zora's daughter or Zora's daughter's husband to come to Sarajevo and get the grandmother, right? And honestly, the fact that Zora, the possums are really possuming today. The fact that Zora used the excuse of like, I can't, my job, whilst knowing that things are heating up and getting very uncomfortable for people. I don't know, it felt like just an excuse. But in saying that, I understand because like jobs, you know, I am unemployed at the moment, so I understand. Yes, okay. But I feel like Zora is not just a teacher, she's a very well-known artist, and she had like a very special, I want to call it a fellowship, but I don't think it's a fellowship, but that's how I'm referring to it. Like, she would have been okay. Zora didn't want to leave Sarajevo. She couldn't, according to her, because of her job. Fine, no problem. So her husband and her mother leave for the UK. And then what we have is Zora just trying to live her everyday life, slowly realizing and noticing that things are not really normal in Sarajevo, and it culminates in the firing on a peace march in Sarajevo that ends up killing, I think, 6 people and injuring heaps of others, and that really is a catalyst for what is to come and essentially the war. So then you have Zora living in war. I think Priscilla Morris did a very incredible job in depicting the horror of living in war. Like, you see a lot of stories talking, God, this lighting is so bad, but like you see a lot of books that talk about the horrors of war from the perspective of people fighting in the war, but very rarely do you see, I feel like there are a lot of historical fiction in World War II about this, but in other contexts, it's very rare to see just everyday people trying to go to work, trying to put food in their tummies, you know, just trying to exist. Very rarely do you see that experience, and I think Priscilla Morris does that really, really well. It's quite confronting and very traumatizing and heart-wrenching as a reader to read Zora's experience, and in that, I think, like, one of the main reasons as to why this book is on the long list, because it's done really well. Like, it's exceptional in how Priscilla Morris is able to paint this very grey picture of the reality of war from the perspective of everyday people. And also, I feel like colour is a very prevalent theme in this book. I think also because Zora is an artist, so you actually feel the colour leaching from Sarajevo. It's a very fascinating, like, progression to witness, but slowly Sarajevo loses its colour and becomes grey and you know, with shades of deep black, and like there's just like no life to it. It's just very, very like heart-wrenchingly sad. So I think that's one of the very, very strong elements to this book that I really loved. And kind of going on that, I want to read some quotes that I noted down, because I was just really loved the way that these sentences were constructed and the image that they were portraying. So from page 25, very early on in the book: but she has a sense that things have upended, as if somewhere a trapdoor has opened and everything is falling through. This is again the beginning of just chaos ensuing. Page 27: for a moment it seemed the anti-nationalist movement was getting somewhere. But now, who knew what type of a Bosnia was being born? So there is this obviously running theme of like, what is identity, what is national identity, like what does it mean to collectively belong, oh my god, the flies, collectively belong as a citizen and just as a human being, because you have these focus on your different ethnicities and that then meaning that you are less than in some people's eyes. So that was very fascinating. I think it's very complex, and I wish the book delved into the complexity of that a bit more, but also like what else, like maybe it's out of the scope of the novel. Like I feel like you could only do so much. But yeah, like you have this running theme of national identity and what is identity, but also like, oh, don't worry, normalcy will begin. Like everything will go back to normal. There is this hope that like rationality would win. Like why would the government and why would people like want war? Like this is ridiculous. It will go back to normal. People will realize, but they don't realize. And then page 40. Apart from the picture of the shelled, I'm not going to be able to pronounce these, I apologize profusely as a warning. Apart from the picture of the shelled Sebilj mountain on the front page of the newspaper, on the sideboard, a solitary pigeon pecking at the rubble of the Baskar-Zija landmark. I'm so sorry. It's as if nothing unusual is going on outside, right? And then page 113. This is in the midst of war. Like we are now in war. The boxes of humanitarian aid are a blessing and a joke. They are being fed, yes, but Zora had found tins in her packages dating back to the Vietnam War. Foil-wrapped ham sandwiches suggest that not a lot of thought is going into feeding a city that is now over half Muslim. I remember reading that and going, ow, like truly, fuck. And then another quote. I have a few more quotes. We're going to talk about this, then I'll talk about my criticisms, I guess. Page 115. The younger ones, when they arrive, try to be nonchalant. Nonchalant? But everyone has lost weight. Everyone jumps whenever there is a loud noise. Page 123. We're all refugees now, Zora writes to Franyor. We spend our days waiting for water, for bread, for humanitarian handouts. Beggars in our own city. Page 197. But now as the snow and shells continue to fall, he is often too exhausted to speak or even sleep when he returns. It's as if he has returned from the void. That is in reference to a boy who is the son of Zora's neighbor Masad, and he chooses to go to and fight in the war because he thinks it's his duty. It's just talking about how it's affecting him, because war is not fun, it's not exciting, it is horrible, it's violent, and it's traumatizing. So there are a lot of parts of this that I really liked, obviously, but I just feel overall it didn't hit the mark that I wanted it to hit, and maybe that's a result and fault of my own expectations that I set on this book. Like objectively, I don't think there's anything wrong with this in terms of like technique. Not that I can say much about technique, but like it's doing what it's set out to do. I think it's very unique perspective. I think it's a very needed story, but at the same time, I feel like when I finished this book, I was like, okay, it's fine. Like that was fine. I wasn't in love. I wasn't telling my mum, oh my god, you need to read this immediately. This was fantastic. It wasn't. At the end, it wasn't for me. And I've tried really to try and reflect on why. And I still don't know. Like it's obviously well researched and well written, but maybe I think the characters needed a bit more work. I think Zora especially didn't feel as well fleshed out as I would have liked. I think there needed a bit more character work. I also think that there is a particular plot line, which is the random romance plot line. Is it a romance? I don't know if it's a romance. It's just two people coming together, Zora and Masad. So Masad is Zora's husband's friend, and they're also neighbors. So Masad is separated, but Zora is, according to her, quite happily married, but obviously her husband is in the UK with her mother, a choice that she agreed to, right? And I think the point of Zora and Masad in coming together was to show like the loneliness, like the bone deep loneliness, and the feeling of just needing something to hold on to in order to ground yourself. And I get that, but I honestly, this, I don't know what I'm gonna say. I feel like people could make a strong argument against what I'm going to say, and I would most likely agree, but I'm gonna say this. All that I just said as to like maybe the reason why Zora and Masad's relationship became like a part of the story towards the end is to show the effects of that in order to demonstrate a different side of the impact of war. But I also think that without that storyline, this book was already showing that, like it was already spotlighting those themes. Like it did not need to have this random affair. And I honestly think that the affair did a disservice to the book because it just didn't make sense. And you could tell from the beginning that something was going to happen because there was like these weird inserts of like Zora wanting to like kiss his lips or something. And I'm like, okay, but you just spent like the past few pages pining for your husband and saying how much you miss him and you haven't missed him like this since like you first got together. You're writing letters to him, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, but like I really want this other man. And I understand, yes, again, I understand loneliness and feeling abandoned because the husband decided to go. Again, it was a decision that everyone was on board with, and she could have, if she desperately wanted to, she could have chosen to go. She would have been okay. But I just didn't understand this. And I thought maybe it was going to become a bit more like in the aftermath of war, they're going to come together and it's going to be like this thing. But he disappears at the end, which was horrible because Zora never knows like what happened to him because he went out to get wood. But like, what was the point of that? I just really hated it. I was reading this and I'm like, why did that include that? Because I think what happened then, right, is then Zora's story felt unfinished. She went to the UK, she got out, and there was a really interesting exploration of like guilt and shame of being able to get out of the war zone, and in comparison to the people who have to stay because they don't have the network to be able to leave. That was fascinating. But again, the complexity in exploring that wasn't there. And so at the end, Zora is in the UK and she's kind of reeling again because she's been through literal war. And then it ends and I'm like, okay, I'm all for an open ending, but this just feels so unsatisfying. I just feel as though the last like third of the book did not need to be there. And I'm just like, okay, that was fine. But I'm just kind of disappointed, to be perfectly honest. If I'm gonna be honest though, I understand why it's on the Women's Prize long list, and I can appreciate it because I think the historical context, like the story itself, needs to be highlighted and spotlighted. But I don't think in terms of writing wise, in terms of the characters, if it's necessarily doing something fabulous. Does that make sense? Same with Children of Paradise that I read. I don't think those two books are necessarily doing anything brand spanking new. Not that it needs to be brand spanking new, but even just doing something, like adding a twist to something, I just don't feel as though they're necessarily like prize long list books, which makes me sound like a bitch, but I'm being honest. Okay, let's talk about the next book. So I actually am doing like a 200, we're up to page 202, so I'm doing like an update just for my thoughts from now. I'm reading Pod by Paull. Now this, I did say could be like a secret favorite. It's not a favorite, however, it's interesting. Okay, so this is not just from the perspective of a dolphin. This is from the perspective of a variety of sea animals. We have a whale, we have dolphin, we have a fish called a wrasse. I don't know. So we have some, like, it's like a multi-perspective sea animal novel. And I agree with Madeline Miller, who blurbed this. It is an extraordinary feat of imagination. It is, because who would have thought, truly. What I'm loving about this is the fact that it's emphasizing how terrible humans are. The running theme of Pod is like, yes, nature is cruel, but humans are crueler. And I think that's like the byline. That's the book. And I think also it, through these characters, it is just emphasizing the lack of care from humans themselves to give a fuck about what their kind of casual, just like, ugh, who cares? Like, there's like trash in the ocean, and there are animals like dying from that, as well as just like the toxins that are being pushed into the ocean. They're like destroying the habitats of these, you know, wonderful sea creatures, and just like climate change and environmental change as a result is just like fucking up the ocean itself, and humans don't give a fuck. Like, that is being done really well in this story, and it's being done in a way that is very different, because it's from the perspective of these animals who don't actually, like, they don't know what climate change is, they don't know what humans are doing, they're just trying to live in the ocean and be their true selves and live their fabulous lives. So they don't actually know what's going on. So the level of, like, not ignorance, but just like, they don't understand what's happening, therefore they don't understand that the reason why certain things are happening is because of humans, either indirectly or directly, through like climate change, or from humans just like putting shit in the ocean. So Paull is doing that incredibly well. But other than that, what the fuck? And there are certain animals that I love. The rorqual, I don't know how to pronounce it. The rorqual, he is precious, truly the hero we deserve. He's a whale. I love him. There's also a dolphin named Google, who was trained as like a military mammal, which so fucking sad. His story is so sad. And the rorqual, like the whale, saved him. It was, oh my god, it was the most gorgeous thing. There is just a lot of sex in here, and I don't really like, which is fine because they're animals, so yes, like, it's like a very natural thing for them, but there's a lot of sex happening and a lot of rape. So I understand, again, that the story is portraying how violent and cruel these animals can be to each other, but like, by definition, like, humanity, what they're doing, what humans are doing to the ocean and to these animals is crueler. But like, because in a way with humans it's like an intentional thing that we're pushing all this shit in the ocean, even if the everyday person doesn't quite know, the lack of ignorance and lack of empathy is something that we should all, you know, change. But why the rape? Like, you're talking about Iya. She's a dolphin. She's a spinner dolphin. And she gets gang raped multiple times and then essentially becomes enslaved to another dolphin. And I don't get it. Like, I don't understand, because does this happen biologically? Like, I know that dolphins, according to biologists, dolphins have coercive sexual mating rituals, and like, this story is very much grounded in traditions and rituals and things that are done because they've always been done, and maybe that not being the correct thing to do, because sometimes the thing that's always been done is not actually right. I get that, but like, biologists do know that dolphins probably have coercive sexual mating rituals. It's never been seen, but it's just assumed. So, okay, but you're putting like human words and human ideas onto dolphins, because like, that brings up the whole issue of like, do dolphins consent? Do they understand what that means? Like, do they understand that what's happening to them is coercive? Does that make sense? But I'm trying to figure out, other than to showcase the violence, why Iya is going through this. And I don't know. But again, I'm not finished the book. I'm gonna have to be honest, like, I don't really care about this. I know a lot of people's criticisms, for instance, of Glory by No Violet Bulawayo was that, like, why did they have to be animals? They could have just been humans. And I disagree with that sentiment. But with this one, I fully think the same. Like, why are they dolphins? Why are we from the perspective of sea animals? I feel like would it be bad to call it a gimmick? But like, it's not. The writing is good, but like, I don't care. Like, it's not amazing. Honestly, I'm not really having a great time with this long list. Like, this book is fine. Other than and how can you call it sensual? Emma Donoghue, how can you call this sensual? How? No. There's a lot of sex in terms of like biological stuff happening, right? But how would you consider it sensual when there's literally, and I'm not even putting words, like this book like calls it rape. This book calls it, that's what they call it, right? How is this sensual? I don't find it sensual. I'm really struggling to care truly about the story, but I'm continuing reading it because I'm enjoying the commentary, and I think the commentary is fascinating, but the story itself, I don't necessarily care, and I think that's not good. I think maybe it's me. It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. I think I'm the problem in this situation. But I'm gonna finish pod today. I don't think my feelings will change, but I will tell you if they do. I've only got like 80 pages to go. Also, I have a quick question, if you're still here watching this. When you, like, people and person, when you use those words, is that only in reference to humans? Or is that like an all species kind of thing? Is it like a neutral term for species? Because you have dolphins and whales referring to like a collective whales of dolphins or whatever as people and persons. So I want to know if maybe like the definition is just open to all creatures or like to all species. Let me know, because that really confused me. I don't know. I think there are parts where like the author forgets that she's writing from the perspective of fish. So anyway, I'm gonna go and finish this book because it's annoying me, and then I will keep you updated if my feelings change or whatever. Like, when I think of Glory by No Violet Bulawayo being on the same list as Pod, Black Butterflies and Children of Paradise, it doesn't make sense. Like, it made sense with the booker, right? I felt like those books were all on par with each other, but these are not. So that's my 2 cents. I'm kind of disappointed in the long list, not gonna lie. Anyway, I'll keep you updated. I just realized that I never actually filmed like this end clip for Pod by Laline Paull. I did finish it. I finished it a few days ago. I've already returned it to the library. Nothing changed. My feelings remain the same. I gave it a 3-star because I do want to highlight the fact that I really thought the commentary was very well done, but the story itself I did not like. The ending was beautiful. Again, the Rorqual, the whale, he came in the end. Truly, he is the hero of the story, but I didn't like it. Thought it was very mediocre, to be perfectly honest. I don't know what else to say other than that. Like, I'm feeling like I'm holding myself back from saying things that are really mean because I don't want to be mean. I just did not enjoy the story, and I would be very surprised if it's on the shortlist because obviously I'm just not seeing it. Maybe I'm not seeing it the way it's supposed to be. So I'm looking forward to watching and reading other people's reviews about it, because I think maybe there's just a disconnect for me. But yeah, that's it. That's my first episode of reading the Women's Prize Longlist. Be sure to stay tuned because there'll be more to come. I'm hoping to begin reading, well, I'm not going to tell you what book I'm reading next. You just have to wait and see. But this is the start of this series. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for staying all this time. Subscribe for more content from me. Like if you like this video, if you want to. If you don't, all good. And I will see you in the next video. Bye, friends.